Hey guys, we're going to be talking about how to do the snowboarder today, how to create frame by frame animation. We're going to be using several different techniques. We're going to be using onion skinning, and we're going to be using all sorts of different types of animation to create this. We're going to be introducing scenes today, so lots of new stuff that we're going to be creating. So we're going to start with our action script 3.0, just like we always do. For this, we're going to be creating, if we look at the preview here, a snowboarder kind of going down a hill. So a couple of things we need to download before we can begin is we need to download our snowboarder image. So I'm going to grab him and just drag him onto my desktop so I can pull him when I need him. And then we're also going to pull out the falling snow image because we're going to make it look like he's being snowed upon. So it's right here underneath the snowboarder image for you, and just take that again and drag that off so that you have it when you're ready to go. For this, we're also going to be adding sounds, and we're going to cover that in a little bit. So to start with, we're going to start with our stage. I'm going to change this to 12 frames per second. So change over here from 24 to 12. And then I'm going to change my stage color to something that looks reminiscent of a sky. So just some type of blue. It's up to you what kind of color of blue you want to choose. I like this one, that works for me. And now I want to draw on layer 1 my snow hill. And I'm actually going to call this snow so that I know that's the layer, because we're going to have a lot more layers than we've had in the past. So I'm going to get my paintbrush over here, and I'm going to choose a white paint because, again, snow is white. Right here I can adjust the size of my brush. It doesn't need to be huge, it doesn't need to be tiny, it just kind of needs to be somewhere in between. And we're going to create a hill for my snowboarder to work on. Don't worry about going off on the stage because that's not going to display when we export this later. But we need to go all the way around from front to back so that it's one continuous image. Excuse me. Because we're going to come over and use our paint bucket tool. Again, make sure it's on white. And with it being continuous from start to finish with a closed path, we can fill in our snow. Now, if you notice, I didn't do anything really complicated. The more complicated your snow is, the more detail you're going to need when you're actually creating your snowboarder. So I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to call this layer Snowboarder. And I'm going to be dragging my snowboarder into my library so that I can work on him. So here he is. I'm just going to drag him in, and now he's a part of my library that I can pull out and use over and over and over. So I'm on frame 1 on my snowboarder layer. I'm going to go ahead and lock my snow just because I don't need to change it. And with my move tool, I'm going to drag my snowboarder onto my stage. So there he is. So I'm going to start him at the beginning. Now I've got him up a little bit, so if I want to grab, I'm going to unlock that snow, and I'm actually going to bring this down a little so I'm not cutting his head off. And I'm going to line them up with the snow. And the idea is we're going to be doing frame by frame. So every bit of this is going to go, is going to have a keyframe by the time we're done. And we'll probably end at about 30 frames, a little more, a little less, depending on how much you move. But 30 is about where you should be. If you're doing 10, you're really making big movements, and you don't want that. So here he is at frame 1. And I've got him placed. I can use my arrow keys, which is what I prefer. So I'm going to come down to frame 2, and I'm going to hit F6, and I'm on a keyframe. Oh, what did I forget to do? I forgot to take my snow and extend it. So I'm going to take my snow on frame 30, and I'm going to hit F5 to make my snow exist the whole way down so I can see what I'm doing. My bad, guys. So here he is in frame 2, and I'm going to take him, and I'm just going to move him a little bit, and I'm going to turn on that free transform tool because sometimes I'm going to want to rotate him. Right now he's just kind of moving over a little. I'm going to come over and do frame 3, and I'm going to move him again. I like my arrow tools, and I'm just doing small movements. F6, and when I get here, this is where I'm going to start rotating him. Now, one of the issues you're going to have is being able to see where you've come and gone from. So we're going to come down here, and we're going to turn on what's called the onion skin. It's this little box right here. And if I can make it bigger or I can make it smaller, and it's going to show me where my movements are in the past. So it's going to move, and it's actually going to show me in the green where my guy is, where I'm at. So as I'm continuing F6, I'm going to keep moving him down, because I want him to be moving down the hill, and I can see kind of where he was, which is nice so that I make sure I'm getting nice small movements. I'm not getting anything that's too big that doesn't make any sense. And I'm going to keep working myself down the hill. Now, it's a little time consuming, I will openly admit that. But when it's all said and done, it looks really cool. So keep rotating. This is kind of where you maybe have a little jump where he kind of jumps over that little hill, because he wouldn't really go perfectly down that hill, you know. F6, and I'm just kind of moving down. So this is that frame-based animation that we talked about, where it's like a flip book. So by the time we're all said and done, we're creating this optical illusion that he's moving down our hill. So you want to be real subtle in your movements. F6. And we're just kind of keep bopping him down. So I moved him a little too much. And that onion skin is really nice because it lets me see kind of where I've been and what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. Now I'm pretty much here to the end, and if you notice, I've got extra frames that I don't need, so I'm going to figure out, I'm going to take those off in just a second. And I'm actually going to move him all the way off the frame, because I want it to look like he's moving in out of the scene completely, and he's completely gone. Okay, so then I have these 3 extra frames right here. So I'm going to highlight these and hold down that shift key and select these, and I'm going to say remove frames because I don't want an awkward break. So now when I hit enter, it's going to look like he's moving down the hill, and that's really what I want it to look like. It's pretty smooth. If it's not, if I've got some jumps, that's when I would kind of go in and make some changes. Easiest way to kind of see is turn that onion skin all the way to kind of see where we're at. So if you have like a spot that maybe like that's too big of a transition, I can adjust it as I need to, you know. So I've got this one done. Now I want to add a second scene. So I'm going to come up here and I am going to say insert scene. To get back and forth, they're right here, scene 1 and scene 2. I'm on scene 2 now, and I'm going to really just do what I did before, where I'm going to make myself a new hill. This time maybe I might do something a little different. Fill that in again. And I'm going to repeat the process I did before. Okay. I'm not going to go through it all with you again because I think you've seen enough of that to know how to do it. So we're going to go back to scene 1, and I want to, I'm going to decorate a little bit. Like if I wanted to make maybe a snowman, I could come over here and make myself a little snowman. You know, and I like to personally kind of create them and then convert them to symbols so that I don't accidentally mess anything up, you know. So you could make yourself a little snowman, you know. You want to make sure that you're being kind of careful not to interfere with anything else. So it might be that you make kind of a new layer so that you keep everything nice and sharp. You know, and you would kind of keep making your snowmen if you want to, and decorating your mountain hill as you will, maybe trees or a start line or a finish line, you know, kind of whatever it is you want to do. Once we've got our guy all the way down, we want to create some falling snow. So we're going to make a new layer, and I'm going to name this layer Falling Snow. And on frame 1, I'm going to insert into my library that falling snow image I gave you earlier. I'm just going to drag and drop. So there it is. And now on frame 1, I can drag, not him, I can drag my falling snow to my timeline. Now, the way this is going to work, and I like to zoom out so you can really see what I'm doing, is I'm going to make my snow cover, using that free transform, my whole stage, because I want it to look like, you know, there's snow everywhere. I don't want it to just randomly stop. And we're going to start it here at the top, and then I'm going to come down to frame 30. I'm going to insert a keyframe, and I'm going to move my snow down. so that the top of the image is at the top now, so that it kind of will move from top to finish, okay? But now I need to animate it so it actually looks like it's falling. So I'm going to highlight it, I'm going to right click, I'm going to create a classic tween. So now, let me zoom back in so it looks normal. When I hit enter, it looks like there's snow falling on my little guy here, which is really, I think, kind of a nice look. Let me find him again. Oof. Watch that one more time. I'm going to turn my onion skin off so you can kind of really see what this is supposed to look like. So it looks like there's nice falling snow, which is really good. Now the last thing I want to add to this is I want to add some sounds. Okay, I want it to sound like the snow is actually falling. On the class website, I've created directions for you on how to download this. I've given you the sound file. So we're going to download this. With the sound file, we're going to actually have to add these into our configuration so that we can access these sounds. They used to be embedded and they're not anymore, so now we have to add them in. So we're going to go to File, Import, and we're going to say Import to the library. And we're going to choose this sound file I've just given you once it finishes downloading. Just be patient with it. It does take a second, and that's completely normal. And we're waiting for it to download. I should have downloaded it before, but I didn't, but that's okay. Once these get added in, we're going to be able to add a sound called Household Deodorant Spray Fizz. Yes, it's supposed to be deodorant and it's a spray can, but it actually kind of sounds like a snowboarder going down a snow hill, which is really nice. You can also find in here a human crowd or some cheering or some other sounds like that that you can add in. It's a really interesting way to do it, and we're going to let this finish recording and we'll come right back. Okay, so our sounds have downloaded, and so we're going to import them in. We're going to say File, Import, Open External Library. Okay, Open External Library, and there's my sounds file. I'm going to click the file and I'm going to say Open, and when that does, we're going to get this library of sounds, which I kind of talked about before. So with these, we're going to create a new layer, and we're going to call this deodorant. I can spell. And we're going to find that household deodorant spray, and I'm going to drag that into my library, so that's a portion of my library. And I'm going to grab the cheering crowd sound. Let's see. And we can click this and preview that sound in theory. Right click and say play. You know, and you can have, there's all sorts of different ones like, yeah, that one's nice. We're going to take that one. So we're going to take this household deodorant spray, and I'm going to be on that deodorant layer on frame 1. I'm going to F6 to add a keyframe. And I'm going to drag the household onto the stage, not in the layer, on the stage. And if you watch, and I'm going to come down here and hit F6 on my keyboard so I can extend it. Oop, there it goes. It was being kind of silly. Let's clear these frames. Clear keyframe. So sometimes they get a little silly, and when that happens, there we go. And so now you're going to see there's this orange line, so when I play this, we're going to hear that household deodorant spray going throughout my timeline. And it's going to stop at the end of my keyframe, but just in case it doesn't, under the properties is the sound, and we're going to say household deodorant spray, and we're going to say sync stop, because I want it to stop, and I don't want it to keep playing after my scene is over. So that's really important. And then on the start, we're going to say household deodorant spray event start. So it starts at 1 and it ends at the end. Now, if you have a little delay of him moving, you can make it stop a little later. I'm going to add a new layer, and I'm going to call this ooze. And I'm going to do the same thing, but I want the ooze to start right here. So I'm going to add a keyframe, and then I'm going to drag those ooze right there. So now I'm going to put a keyframe at the end, and under the properties, human ooze, event, stop, effect, fade out because I don't want it to like abruptly stop. So let's hear what that sounds like. See, and it kind of stops a little early. So we're going to drag this over. And it's one of those, you know, you kind of have to keep playing with it till you get it right where you want it to be. And we would kind of keep playing with it until we get it kind of the way we like. But now I have falling snow, I have my sounds, and I have my snowboarder going down the hill. When I'm all said and done, we're going to pretend like I'm all done. I'm going to say File, Export to Movie. I'm going to call this last name, first period, and then snowboarder. And I'm going to change this to a SWIF. Now, MOV is also fine if that's an option. And I'm just going to put it on my downloads. That's fine. And I'm going to say save. And it's going to export it. And when it's all done, when I go into my downloads, there's my SWIF file ready for me to watch it. Well, that is our tutorial on how to create the snowboarder. If you have any questions, let us know. When you're all done, make sure you turn it in. Thanks so much.